session on Chatting with Booyah. Today's section is Tips for Running a Section or Community, Part 1, Getting Started. I get a lot of questions on how I started the Marauders, or MarauderClan.com, for those of you who have no idea who we are. Basically, it all comes down to, at least for the beginning, a four-step process. So this is also pertaining towards running your own section if you're in the Marauders, and how exactly that goes about. So this is the first step. Find those you trust, find their strengths. So I've made the persistent and common mistake of putting people in charge who are friends of mine, instead of putting people in charge who put in a lot of work, basically. And that's a common mistake that anybody starting a section will make. And I learned it a couple of years ago. Nowadays, I don't reward people with rank just because they're my friend. I mean, that'd be favoritism. Um, I reward people with rank and promotions and more um, responsibility, basically, when they show me that they can do the job, that they're intelligent, that they have a knack for it. But the biggest thing for me is longevity. You have to have a sense of loyalty, because if I have to replace you every 5 minutes, then I don't really want you in a position of authority, because it means that you're only going to be passing through. Um, the main idea is that you find people who reflect your viewpoint for whatever that section is. So I put someone in charge of the news team because she reflected my viewpoint and how I wanted the news team run. You know, quick articles, well-written articles, grammatically correct, and basically just making sure that we stay relevant with what's currently going on. Everything that she wanted was the same thing that I wanted. So that's why she became the head of the news team. Um, and a lot of you who run your own sections or who are going to build your own communities are going to have vastly different viewpoints from mine, and that's fine, because, you know, you're not going to be running my community. But if you wanted a news team, for instance, that just shot out articles like a shotgun, then you can do that too. And you just have to find somebody who can help you manage that and who can get that rolling. So the whole point isn't find your friends to help you run your section or your community. It's find people that you trust to do the job that they're given or that they have to do without disappearing, or as we call it, Houdiniing, for no apparent reason. So the second step, decide how you want to lead. So this is important because, like I said, the whole friend thing kind of turned into favoritism with the promotions, and that's when I stopped doing that. Because it just doesn't work. Your friends want to be friends. Your friends want to play most of the time, unless they extremely share your goal of how you want to run things. It's just not going to work out. So the second step being, find out basically how you want to lead, or decide how you want to lead, is the idea that everybody has a different lead system. So my father always told me there's two different types of leaders. There's natural leaders and there's learned leaders. Natural leaders just have a natural skill, a natural talent with leading. I am not a natural leader. I am the second one. I'm what's called a learned or experienced leader. I learned how to lead from watching other people how to lead. My brother was the natural leader. Um, but we each have our different strengths. My brother has charisma, so he's able to get people to follow him and basically do what he says. I do not have that sense of charisma. I am a blunt, instrument. I hammer away until I get something done. And my experience from watching how other people lead and how those situations occur has made me into the type of leader that I am. I don't fuck around. I get to the point. I push through for the objective. And I work as hard as I can to make whatever is in my head become real. I tend to burn out people sometimes doing that, but it's just the way I lead. I can't help it. But the difference is that everyone's going to have a different leading style. I went through when I first started leading, websites and game sections and such. I found that most of the people that helped me lead whatever I was doing fucked around too much, and either just didn't keep up with what they were doing, or um, didn't do it the way I wanted it to. And then when I would speak to them about it, it wouldn't be a debate or pros and cons of my way versus how they want to do it. It would be this is the way I'm going to do it. If you don't like it, I'll quit. And so I would cave to how they wanted things to be because I didn't want to lose them in that role. Not understanding that even if they lose that role, there might be another person around the corner who is going to do it the way I want it done. So for a long time, I kind of caved. And over time, I noticed that the more I caved, the more other people saw I caved, and they would kind of start doing their own thing. And then you begin to have a system of no leaders because too many chiefs, not enough Indians type of deal. Um, that system doesn't really work for me. Blunt instrument. So for myself, I'm an asshole. So I learned a long time ago that if I don't force people to do things the way I need them to be done, then nothing's ever going to progress. And so I basically decided that I was going to be an asshole as a leader from now on. And that's why even in my own website, there is a rule specifically stating that you're not allowed to be an asshole unless you're Booyah. That's an actual rule. Um, so however you want to lead is your choice. But for myself, I found that being an asshole and just pushing until I see something complete is the only way I can effectively lead a website of so many people. So you need to decide, be it a section lead or building your own community, if you want to basically be friends with everyone, or if you want things to be done exactly the way you want it to be done. Because I can tell you, if you're too friendly, people will walk all over you. Third step, begin from the beginning, hard work. So, to start up a section or a community, generally you start out with a couple of people. A lot of times they're your friends. Sometimes it's just people who share your vision and yada yada. So when you start up a section in my website, you start out as you come and talk to me, and then if I like the game and I like the goals you have for whatever section you're trying to run, then I promote you to sergeant. I build you a forum and a TeamSpeak, and then it's on you to completely run your own community, be it recruiting, be it finding people who you think should be the corporals or sergeants for your section, and getting your game night started, and coming up with your award system, and all these other things. That's what my community does. If you're starting your own community, you have to have at least a couple of people. I started out with 3. We recruited 10 in the first week and a half. We had about 20 or 30 people by the end of the month. We were building our website. That's what worked for us. We tried to focus on 2 games, and that didn't work out. And then we made the mistake of focusing too much on Europe for for a region on the game we played, and that didn't work out because I'm not European. I can play on their servers, but I'm not always going to play on their servers. I don't have that kind of time if I'm running the American side. So that was a mistake we made. Um, but you need to find whatever game you're focusing on, and please, for the love of Jesus, only focus on one at a time. Because if you try and recruit for 4 of them, and your clanmates or community mates or community people, whoever they are, keep coming in, and they see it's just you and you're always playing the same game, but you're not playing their game, then they'll leave. Because the basis of your clan when it first starts is all about the leader. Including a section. When you first start a section, the very common mistake and caution tale that is made for my clan is if you put all of the pressure on just the one section lead to run everything, and basically like your game nights and your awards, and they're not allowed to do anything unless you say so, and everything has to filter through you, and if you disappear for just a minute, your section dies, and it's happened over and over again. So I keep warning people when they start up a section, don't put everything on yourself. It's fine if you're doing the overall management, but you need to have somebody who runs your game nights, and somebody who runs your coaching, and somebody who helps build your guide section, or watches the content, or polices your TeamSpeak. If you don't delegate that, then your section will die the minute you turn your back. It cannot all be on one person. In the beginning, and this is going counter to what I said, in the beginning though, it is all on you until you find those people you trust. Then you slowly shift them into positions of authority. Well, XXX is in charge of coaching, XXX is in charge of game nights. And you don't pick them because necessarily that they're like-minded with you in the beginning. You pick them because it's what maybe their special talent is. So player XX is really good at making sure that people get in TeamSpeak and people are playing together and all that. Well, good, then that's your game night lead. Well, XXX over there is always giving tips about how to play the game. Okay, good, you're my head of coaches. That's how you find the right people. You just find out what they're already doing and give them a position that gives them a little more authority to do what they're already doing. You just enhance it. You try and guide them into that. And then you also eventually need to find somebody who shares your ideas for the system that you're trying to run with your section or community, and that's your number two. Because they need to have as much in line with your way of thinking as possible to be your number two. Otherwise, you're fucked. Because if you disappear for a minute and you come back, then they've changed everything in the plans that you had, and there's the possibility that if you were on the right track, they're fucking your shit up. So just find somebody who is like-minded in every step with you. So that is the third step, is the hard work, and that's basically just recruiting, building up your sections, building up your community, just recruit. So the fourth step, know your role and build your environment. So it depends on what kind of environment you're trying to create. So in a community or section, the mistake we made was in the first month that we started recruiting, and I would have brought on a lot more people, that we found we were only trying to recruit people who were very, very, very good at the game we played, which was Heroes of the Storm. That was a mistake, because we can always coach somebody to be a better player. I've seen dozens of people come into Marauder since then, and they've gone from basically like a low-tier player to a higher-tier player. And the mistake we made was just grabbing these higher level people in the beginning. And then what happens is they come in, they play with us, they have a good time, and then they find a team somewhere else and they leave. A lot of the newer guys are joining just because they want to play with people who are either at their skill level or a little above to learn more. When you get these people who are on my level, who are like Diamond Master, Grandmaster players, then you start running into problems with the skill level because they think they already know everything they need to know, and they thought they were going to find a team. Well, they might find a team with your clan, they may not. But then you have a very low chance of actually keeping them there or keeping them happy, because they're going to constantly want a competitive environment, and you can only do so much. With these lower tier to middle tier players, when they come in, then you get to kind of guide and help shape them into better players. And that's kind of what you want when you're first starting out a section. Then later on in the time of your section or community, you're going to find that you're still recruiting some of the higher tier players because they've been higher tier for a while at this point, and now they just want a place where they can play and have fun. And that's kind of a good thing. The environment you create is whatever you decide. If you start having game nights for whatever you're doing, then it's your choice if you want to make them competitive game nights, team-based game nights, where, it's team versus team versus team, and everyone has set teams, set roles. Or you can have it be fun. Like if it's a MOBA, you can have ARAMs. If it's a shooter, then have knives only or throwing knives only, or, for all I know, whatever that is in shooters. But that's the idea, is you need to kind of decide what type of environment you want to create. And if you make it just a little bit too competitive, then there's a chance your section will implode. And you got to kind of keep an eye on that. And when I say your section will implode or your community will implode, is because everybody has like a competitive cap wherever you go. If your section all of a sudden reaches its competitive cap where, you're not bringing in super high level people anymore, and you keep bringing in some of the lower tier, middle tier people no matter what you try, and you're constantly rotating through people who are joining, and then you don't have any retention, so they keep leaving, then everyone's going to notice that, and your section will start to cave in from the top down, because your higher level players will leave first, and then it'll start to go like that. So competitive environment is good. A completely competitive environment has a very high tendency to crap out very quickly. So my suggestion would be try and find both. Not easy to do. Try and get some teams going, and have a game night that's competitive, but you can also have a game night that's fun. Or the way I used to run my section is, the game nights are always fun. We always do something weird or fun or casual, and the tournaments are not. So we had 2 tournaments a month. It'd be very, very difficult tournaments. We try and balance the teams as best as we could, and best of luck. We found that seemed to work the best. Know your role comes down to at the point that you need to understand what your own unique skills are. So, for instance, my unique skill is being able to implement the ideas that I actually have, which, believe it or not, is a unique skill. Most people, almost everybody, has a million ideas, but none of them have ideas on how to implement it, or they don't have any follow through. Um, so my unique skill is organization. I have Sarah, and she builds my website. That's her unique skill. So she's my website programmer. Has been forever, for 3 years or something that we've been together. Um, and then I have Steiker, who's very good about being a neutral party. So he runs all of my crime and punishment. I have Top Gun, who's very good at adminning and logging. So he runs all the background stuff. It's not necessarily jobs that any one of us quite enjoy, but we get to help build a community and see the effects that we have on the community, and that's what we enjoy. It's not about what your job is so much as what you're good at, you know. But at the same time, I don't force my graphics people who do graphics for a living to actually be graphics people on my website, because that's an actual job. I hope any of that made sense to you. But knowing your role basically comes down to you can't be the coach and the game night lead and the head of tournaments, and you can't be this and that and tit for tat, and you can't be everything. You have to find a way to delegate, and you have to remember that you're the section lead, or you're the community lead, or you're the leader or founder or whatever you want to call yourself, and just glue yourself to that role and get the idea that this is, as my brother would say, this is your bitch, and you run this bitch, and you just have to remember that, because people are going to challenge you on it constantly, and you just have to understand that that's going to happen and be ready for it. So just know your role. Well, that's it for the first session of Chatting with Booyah. This is, again, sorry, and I get messages when I'm doing this too. This is Tips for Running a Section or Community Part 1, Getting Started. I'll do another one of these in not too long, and we'll probably end up going over how exactly you want to build a website for a community. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.